Hello and welcome to HaXeZ, where we try to simplify cybersecurity. Today we are looking at PortSwigger Web Academy. Now, looking at this, it's changed a bit. I've not done it in a while, but when I did this, this was the fourth exercise, and it's the one called, I believe it's an SQL injection attack retrieving multiple values in a single column. So it's about like concatenating data into a single column. Now I've got this marked as the fourth one, but based on this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yes, it appears to be the sixth one. Now I'm not sure whether it's because it's the fourth one that you encounter when you actually go through the Academy study materials. I'm going to assume that that's the reason why. But yeah, so what we need to do is we need to perform an SQL injection attack retrieving multiple values. So it will be you got one table with multiple columns like username, password, and then we need to put that into a single column by concatenating the data because we've only got one column to play with, because there's only one column in the database or the website that uses string data. So all we're going to do is we're going to click on that. So you can see here, this lab contains an SQL injection vulnerability in the product category filter. The results from the query are returned in the application response, so you can use a union attack to retrieve data from other tables. The database contains a different table called users with columns, username and password. To solve the lab, perform an SQL injection union attack that retrieves all usernames and passwords and use the information to log in as the administrator user. So they've given us the administrator, they've given us the table that we need, they've given us the columns that we need, so this should be fairly straightforward. So if we go ahead and access the lab, you'll see here we've got a very sort of basic layout, what looks to be 2 columns, could be more, could be less. Number of filters, got an home and a my account. I assume that's where we go when we got the credentials to log in, and that's about it. So what we'll do is if we head to Burp Suite and turn Intercept on, we are of course using the Burp browser because why not, it makes everything easier. And then if we click on accessories, we can see that it is the filter that the introduction says is vulnerable to the SQL injection. So right away we can send that to Repeater, because Repeater is just by far the best way to do things, and we can start our attack off. So with union-based attacks, the first thing we want to do is we want to see how many columns there are. And in order to do this, we need to first escape by using the single quotation mark, because that will throw an error in your SQL syntax. It will tell it, to execute this instead. And then we're going to do plus union plus select. And I am reading off of a screen. I've already done a write-up just to make it easier, so it's not so messy on the fly. Plus null, and then if we comment that out and click send, what will happen now is we'll either get a 200 message to say that it's okay, or a 500 message to say it's not okay. What the 500 message means is that there's an error in our syntax, because in this case we've not provided enough columns. So if we go ahead and send that over, you'll see we get a 500 error. But if we delete that and do null null and then comment it out, what we should get, fingers crossed, is a 200 OK message. So we now know that there are 2 columns. I mean, it was fairly obvious from the website that there were 2 columns. But now we've got sort of, documented proof that you can put in your report. You can send a request, send the response, snippet them out, and you can say this is vulnerable to union-based SQL injection because I was able to enumerate the amount of columns based on that. But we can take it further now. So we now need to know which column supports hex. So let's start with the first column, and we will try and put a string into the column. And what will happen is if it supports text or strings, it will give us another 200 OK. If it doesn't, it will give us a 500 error message. So all I've done is I've replaced null with a string of A, and I'll send that request, and you can see we get a 500 internal server error, meaning that this column doesn't support text. So we'll now change that back to null, and we'll replace the second null with an A and send that, and hopefully we should get a 200 message, which we do. So this says that this column supports strings. And the reason why we use null is because pretty much all databases, Oracle, MS SQL, MySQL, Postgres, they all recognize null as a value. So we can use null to just query any column basically, because it's null data. We're saying put nothing in the column, put nothing in the column, it returns it. It's like, okay, that's good, it works. But as soon as you try and put a string in the wrong column, try and put a string in a column that supports integers, and you can't do it. So where do we go from here? Well, we know that we need to get the username and password columns from the users table, I believe it said. So if we just jump back onto the page, so we need to retrieve username and password from users. But as you can see, this is going to be a problem. We only have one column that can support strings, and we need to retrieve two columns of data. Now, in order to get around this, we can concatenate the data from those two columns into one column, into the column that supports strings or text. So in order to do that, we need to first keep our null in place. So we know that that first column doesn't support text. And then we want to say we want to grab the username, and then we want a double pipe. And then we want, I believe it's a single quote, a tilde, a single quote, and then we want a double pipe again. Type password plus from plus users, and then comment that out. So as you can see, this cheeky string here, apologize if that's too small, I'll increase it on the next video, that's concatenating it. So it's saying get usernames, passwords into a single column from the users table. And now if we run this, fingers crossed it doesn't 500, we should see a username and password. Now as you can see there, you've got Carlos and you have administrator. So the SQL injection has done exactly what it says. You can probably see it on here somewhere. So if I do a search and just search for administrator, yeah, you can see the username and password there. I just like to render it on the page because it shows what it will look like if you're testing it. It looks prettier, it's right there. Yeah, so all we need to do now is copy that. Bear with me a sec. Just going to throw that into Notepad quickly. And then we're going to go to my account. I believe I need to turn the proxy off. And then we can log in as administrator. And password. There you go. Congratulations, we have solved the lab. Now I'll tell you something else which you can notice as well. Is if we look at the response again in repeater, you can see the tilde is there, which is the separator. So it just separates the values. Otherwise, administrator and password would be completely merged together and you wouldn't know where one ends and one begins. Thankfully, the username and password are fairly simple. I believe you could use any type of sort of separator on this. So if I just put in wiggle, just set that. I do one match. Yeah, you can see right there, I got wiggle in the middle. So you can always use a keyword to see if your results are coming back out. Use something unique, something obvious. But that's it, I believe. Yeah, we solved the lab. I hope this has helped you solve the lab. It's been a while since I've done this, so I'm sort of reading it from my blog and then trying to do it at the same time. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, let me know what you think. We'll continue going through all the videos. Hopefully, I'll try and put it in the description what video relates to what challenge, because the numerical order is just going to be messed up. But anyway, let me know what you think. Give me a like, give me a subscribe. Kind regards.